Mew's best gymming movesets in Pokemon Go. This is the second part of my Mew moveset content. The first video focused on raids and is generally a bit more useful. Link to that in the description if you want to check it out. But if you're curious what movesets, what Mew movesets are good for Mew as a gym attacker, then this video will look at Mew's moves in a vacuum. Seeing which moves are Mew's personal best and comparing it to other attackers in the game, seeing which moveset allows Mew to stand out from the crowd. One thing I want to make clear to you guys before I go forward is Mew isn't the best gym attacker in the game. One area where it kind of stands out to me is as a gym cleaner. So if you're using Mew to fight like weak, demotivated Pokemon very quickly with its wide variety of movesets, that's an area where Mew can really stand out. But if you're like fighting a gym pre-raid or it's a highly motivated gym with some of the best defenders in it, then you're probably going to be better off sticking with a more powerful gym attacker like Rayquaza or Raikou or Mewtwo. So to figure out what Mew's best movesets are in a vacuum, a lot of people like to use weave DPS charts. I like to call it simple cycle DPS charts, which just kind of looks at the overall DPS of a move after using all the fast moves to launch one charge move cycle. Well, we know that there's a better method out there. That's called comprehensive DPS, forged by the bioweapon himself. Comprehensive DPS considers energy gains you get from taking damage, and it also considers damage lost from either fainting or KOing your opponent. In the past, cycle DPS has always been expressed as a range because there's a variety of energy gains you can get from damage, and there's all sorts of different times where your Pokemon could faint or you could KO your opponent. Well, Bioweapon found a way that he feels he's satisfied with to calculate like an average result. So it's not the average of all the numbers in the range, it's actually a very specific calculation using results from the range. So I took the results from Bioweapon's spreadsheet and focused on movesets that stood out to me and moves that stood out from the best rating movesets. Then I compared them by percent to max because like, what's the difference between 12.19 and 11.59, all that kind of nonsense. And then I also did a percent range, which kind of helps divide the differences between them a little bit better. Then I took the results from the percent range, and then I made a histogram out of it with a standard distribution. The z-score is where it falls on the standard distribution. So 0 is the mean, the average, and 2 is what's considered to be statistically significant. This way we have 4 different ways of looking at the differences between Mew's movesets. And that's what's going on here. So the first moveset we have here is Wild Charge. And I have to say that even though it is Mew's best charge move, its personal best, I really don't see it standing out for Mew, like making Mew stand out in the game. It directly puts Mew in competition with Raikou and Zapdos, both of which are just extremely good supreme electric type attackers. And if you have either of those powered up and you want to use a Wild Charge Mew, you'd probably be better off using them instead. If you're comparing it to Jolteon, Mew does have some niche advantages in terms of bulk and having the Wild Charge, but overall I think as an electric type attacker, if you already have good electric types, you're probably not going to want to use Mew for that. However, if you don't, and you do have powered up Mew, or you are powering up your Mew and it has Wild Charge, then it would be pretty good as a gym cleaner with the Wild Charge set. I'd say overall Mew is kind of like a 3rd or 4th best electric type in the game, which honestly isn't saying a whole lot if you already have a Raikou powered up. Going down we got Grass Knot, and yeah, once again, Mew kind of has a little bit of trouble standing out with Grass Knot, even though it's a personal best for Mew. We have Frenzy Plant Venusaur, we got Leaf Blade Sceptile. There really isn't a whole lot of headway Mew can make as a pseudo grass type attacker with that kind of competition, especially for gym cleaning. On top of that, looking at the comprehensive DPS rankings, the Grass Knot is at about a 12 for Mew. Executor with Seed Bomb even stands ahead of Mew with roughly like a 14 cycle DPS. So yeah, overall I don't really think being a grass type attacker is a really good shtick for Mew either. Going down we got Psyshock, and Psyshock is pretty unique, I'd have to say, for Mew. It's the only Pokemon in the game that has a 3-bar psychic type charge move and can wield it effectively. Jinx also has Psyshock, but is pretty paper thin and glassy. If you're going to be using a Psyshock, you'd probably want to go with Mew. With Shadow Claw, you get that nice ghost psychic coverage, but it does kind of put it in competition with Mewtwo, which does the same thing but inverted, right? With Confusion or Psycho Cut with Shadow Ball. I think Mew has an advantage as a gym cleaner here in that Mew has a 3-bar charge move, allowing it to deploy it sooner and knock out opponents a little bit sooner than Mewtwo. On top of that, with the Shadow Claw, Mew can chunk down Psychic type defenders pretty quickly, having probably the best ghost type damage in the game, where Mewtwo is going to be hung up on these attackers until it can launch its Shadow Balls. And then after it launches a Shadow Ball, if the defender is still alive to any extent, then it's going to have to go through the burden of just slapping it over and over again until it gets another Shadow Ball, resulting in time wasted, energy wasted, overkill damage. So in these respects, Mew could be a better gym cleaner than Mewtwo with a Ghost Psychic kind of moveset. Additionally, if you got Dragon Tail with your Psyshock, then you can get a double weather bonus. You do miss out on the coverage that Shadow Claw provides, but with a wind boost, Dragon Tail would probably be a better quick move for Mew. Once again, I just want to clarify that Mewtwo with Shadow Ball is a better gym attacker overall. This is more of like a niche sort of, I'm trying to knock down this gym quickly, more of like a casual kind of strat for using Mew. So I just want to make that clear again. Now, dropping down from these higher levels of significance, right, we run into Dazzling Gleam. And even though Dazzling Gleam is one of Mew's personal best movesets compared to the others, I really don't think Dazzling Gleam is a really good attack for gym cleaning or gym offense in general. In the main series games, Fairy type was introduced to kind of balance out the all-powerful Dragon, Dark, and Fighting types that have taken over the game. In that sense, it's more of a defensive type than an offensive type. On top of that, Fairy type damage is resisted by one of the most common types in Pokemon Go, which is Poison type. Additionally, it's resisted by one of the better defensive types in the game, which is Steel type. So yeah, I'd say overall for gym offense, especially just gym cleaning, just random trash Pokemon, I don't think Fairy is where it's at. On top of that, this puts Mew in direct competition with Gardevoir, and it's going to kind of lose that fight each time. And it also puts it in competition with Granbull, which also has Dark Fairy coverage with the stronger Play Rough. Dark and Ghost have basically the same coverage, so they're more or less interchangeable. So it's not a bad moveset for Mew, and if you have it and you're using it for other things, and you also want to use your Mew for gym cleaning, maybe it's cloudy outside, it's going to be a good moveset for Mew. But holistically, comparing it to all other Pokemon and comparing it in a vacuum, I don't think Dazzling Gleam's all that good of an attack. Next up, we got Blizzard and Ice Beam. And we all know for gym cleaning, single bar charge moves don't really cut it, so let's just ignore Blizzard here and focus on the Ice Beam. I think Ice Beam is where Mew really does stand out from the pack. Looking at the comprehensive DPS of other Ice-type Pokemon, Mew is basically on par with them. A big reason for that is because a lot of their attack stats are quite low. If you remember from my previous Mew moveset video, you can check the link in the description, right? Mew has a higher attack stat than all other ice types, and it has a higher CP than all other ice types. So holistically, Mew is kind of a better ice type attacker. With the Shadow Claw, it also allows Mew to overcome some gym defenders that ice types get hung up on with their double ice coverage. For example, the Slow Dudes or Metagross, both Psychic type, for their subtypings, Mew can chunk them down pretty quickly. Thinking about ice types overall, the ice typing, where the Fairy type is more of a defensive type in the main series, Ice type is more of an offensive type. It can hit a lot of different Pokemon for super effective damage, such as the super common Flying and Grass type Pokemon that we see in all these different gyms. And it's a poor defensive type. It's got a long list of weaknesses. I'm not even going to talk about it here. So all these different things really sets Mew up to be a better Ice type overall. And for that reason, I feel that this is Mew's kind of personal best moveset, not only for raiding, but for gym offense, which is why I come to the conclusion between the two different videos that Mew's best universal moveset overall is Shadow Claw and Ice Beam. If Mew got Avalanche instead, or also got Avalanche in its move pool, also a TMable move in the main series games, then it would be no question that Avalanche would be the rightful best moveset on Mew. But for all these different reasons provided, you can pick and choose your Mew moveset as you see fit. While I feel Ice Beam is the best moveset overall, depending on the matchup, depending on what you're using your Mew for, depending on how many charge move TMs you have, you might be better off settling or going for something else. Now I know I skated over Dragon Claw and Dark Pulse, and the reason is kind of obvious. They're both weaker on the scale for Mew's personal best, and it puts Mew in direct competition with Rayquaza, Dragonite, Latios, and Tyranitar. For the Dragon Claw, it's a 3-bar, so there's an advantage there, but a lot of people have the 3-bar Dragon Claw on the Dragonite and Latios, which has so many other advantages over Mew, wields it itself, so I think for the most part there's no competing there. And then when it comes to Dark Pulse, Dark type coverage, you got Tyranitar you have to deal with, and once you're in Tyranitar's court, there's no real winning. Mew does have that Dark Pulse advantage over Focus Blast Mewtwo, you know, the one move set that wards off the Tyranitar. But in all other scenarios, Dark Pulse Mew really isn't doing anything to be better than Tyranitar. Also, if you're curious about Mew with the Focus Blast, maybe with the Rock Smash, and how it does against the normal types, against Blissey, it's kind of Rhydon tier, even with the resistances and super effective damage. Mew doesn't really stand out in this fight, and I really can't advise people using their Mew for this. If you have a Focus Blast Mew, and you do want to use Mew to fight the normal types, then that's on you, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, it's as good as Rhydon, which isn't necessarily a good pick, but it's perfectly viable for the role. If you're curious about how to do that the best, if you go with the double fighting, then you can get the double weather bonus, but Pound is better in a vacuum, as well as Cut, so Cut and Pound. So you can go for like cross weather, like, ooh, I want to get a boost. I want to get a boost from 2 different flavors of weather, or you can just double down on Cloudy and go double fighting. Up to you. Overall, you're probably going to be better off using a Machamp or a Hariyama. Also, Slowpoke pointed out in my last video that I completely overlooked Rock Slide against Ho-Oh raids. So if there's a Solar Beam Ho-Oh in the future, I mean, we got a re-release of Lugia, so it stands to reason that we'll eventually get a re-release of Ho-Oh, right? Rock Slide Mew does stand out, mostly because it's not weak to Solar Beam, so it can tank it pretty reliably. As far as Rock Slide Mew on Gym Offense goes, it's a pretty decent move. You can get the partly cloudy weather boost, and then you can also combo it with Pound or Cut to get that double weather up, right? So both moves are getting boosted by the weather to make Mew a pretty formidable rock type attacker. I guess overall though, Golem does it way better, has 2 rock type moves, and it has the Rock Blast, which is 3-bar. So the advantages are a little bit more shaky, but if you have Rock Slide on your Mew, and you're a little bit wary about the future Ho-Oh raid you might experience, then it's perfectly reasonable to keep that on your Mew and to have it trucking along with that. If you like this video and you'd like to see more like it, then subscribe to SwagTips. I like to do Pokemon analysis like this pretty often. Many of you are probably already subscribed to me. And if you have any questions about this content or want to know more, then comment below and let me know what's up. And just to reiterate, this is the second part of my Mew moveset content. If you want to see the video on the best rating moveset, then check it out in the description. Bye-bye. SwagTips. Also, I just want to mention it again. If you want to see Mew fighting gyms and different applications of Mew, then check out Poke AK's channel. He's got quite a few videos up, and he seems to be putting out even more. He changes up his movesets every now and then, so you get a pretty good feel for what Mew actually looks like in practice. So yeah, check him out.